Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Allow me to introduce you guys to my latest Seiko purchase. It's a Seiko SPB207 and this is the special edition with this sort of fume sunburst green dial. Now these watches retail at an astonishing £1,200 within the UK, and I'm here to tell you I definitely don't think it's worth anywhere near that. And I'll tell you why. I've got a few problems with this. Now, one of the main well-known issues is the fact that the bezels are near enough all misaligned. Now, I am a huge Seiko fan. You guys have seen my collection videos. I've got 95% Seiko watches. And what I've noticed, the older mid-level prospects divers, it was a bit of a hit and miss, right? You did get misalignments, but you had some which were spot on, no issues at all. And I've personally looked at two of these SPBs. I had the Steel Master for a couple of days, which I gave back. And I've got this green dial version. And again, it just seems to miss the alignment by just half a click, so which is annoying, right? But that's not always a deal breaker. I think the main thing for me with this particular watch is the movement. It has to be that it's a 6R35 3 Hz movement, and they have upped it to 70 hours of power reserve, which, to be honest with you, doesn't give me any value within the movement. Now, I know brands like Longines do it and Hamilton does it as well. Now, the 6R35, it's not only down to the low beat, which is an issue, it has huge reliability issues. If you do a quick Google search, you'll see them on all the forums where people have spoken about poor amplitude issues leading in poor timekeeping abilities. Now, at that price point, that's definitely something which should not happen. And at £1,200, you're in the same basket of some really well-made entry-level Swiss watches like Zin, Longines, RS, etc. So, it's not something that you should have to think about when you get the watch. I mean, there's a lot of watches that are being sold, all at this level, at this price point from Seiko, which have these issues in that 6R35 movement. And for the most part, people do not know about it because not everyone owns a time grapher. You cannot trust the store that you buy it from, especially when you buy it from the boutique stores or from a well-known jewelers. It's not something you will go back and test. Now, having said that, speaking about why I don't think it's worth £1,200, why did I end up buying it then? Now, this goes back to just back end of last year around the Black Friday sales. I wanted to get a watch in the mid-tier level, and for me, mid-tier for Seiko is the 8L range. So I wanted the bigger brother of this MM200, the full-fat MM300 Marine Master. And at that point, I think in the time of sale, you could pick up SLA Marine Masters for around £2,100, which was a pretty good deal considering they're about 2.8, 3, depending on which variant you go for. I think the only thing that held me back is that I own a Proxima MM300, and that is very close dimensionally, so I know what it's like wearing that watch. And it's a big, heavy watch, and it's not something I could wear daily. It does stick out quite a bit, and it's not a watch you'd wear that often. So, I don't want that money to go to waste. I'd rather get a watch that I enjoy wearing and is sized accordingly, which is what turned my attention to this MM200. Now, after all the negatives said, I still think it's a very good looking watch, and it's one of the significant releases for me. I don't really look at any of the new Seiko models. I am kind of alienated or disgruntled with them, should I say, because I'm seeing all reissues. But the MM200 was good enough because the main thing about this watch is, aside from the typical Seiko diver looks, it's got great proportion, great dimensions. I mean, the watch fits so good on a 6.5-inch wrist for a watch that should be quite a lot bigger, and they've done this through carefully looking at the dimensions. And this is a trademark of Seiko, where at the bezel it actually measures at 40 millimeters. Now, on a lot of other watches that I've looked at, you find the bezel actually protrudes and is slightly bigger than the case. But with this one, you can see how the case bows out slightly. So the case diameter is a spot on 42 millimeters in diameter. Bezel brings up to 40, so on wrist it already looks a touch smaller. Now, aside from that, you've got quite a compact lug-to-lug of 48.5 millimeters. Yes, you do have male end links, but they do have quite a dramatic downturn on the case and also the end link. So it only increases that lug-to-lug of 51.5 millimeters, but with that downturn on the case. And it is 30 millimeters thick, which is more than acceptable for a diving watch. And the lug width is 20 millimeters. So they've done it perfectly, I think. And you can see in the wrist shots, for a 6.5-inch wrist, this sits dead center, and yeah, it does not move, and it is very comfortable. So it's a lot better looking on wrist, a bit more toned down than the full fat MM300. Now, the price point is a huge shame, really, because it takes it out of reach for a lot of people, not only for monetary purposes, but just based on principle. As I said earlier on, for that price point, you can get something which is much better made, doesn't have some of these issues that I've just spoken about, and you end up missing out on what is a really good watch. I think they should have been priced close to the £600 mark. In all honesty, I don't see any difference between, you know, the previous tier of watches like the Sumo Gen 3s. You know, they came out at £600 retail, but these come in at double. I really don't see why or how. And even the non-special editions with the blue dial or the Steel Master edition, brand new, it's around 8 something, which is, yeah, still a bit too much. You do miss out on a lot of what this watch has to offer. Even the case finishing is perfect. You've got very clean cut transitional lines between the different types of brushing. You've got linear hairline brushing just on those lug tips. Then along the flanks, you've got a fully highly polished surface and that clean stripe of, you know, fine brushing through the center of the case. And also another thing about Seiko cases, on most of the divers you'll see the underside also kind of slopes inwards, which really helps that comfort on wrist. Let's give you a quick look at the case back and some of the improvements they've got on this watch now, because it has been quite a while since I bought a new Seiko Diver. Case back, you've got your specifications, limited edition, etc., and the Seiko wave in the center, beautifully finished. You can see all the solid links, solid end links on that bracelet also. So yeah, they have made a few improvements from, you know, the entry level Prospex divers that we saw, and I think the main difference on the bracelet that you'll see is the clasp. And I gotta say, people do whinge about the clasps, but I like the clasps. I really never had an issue with the previous one. You know, I know it was stamped, but it worked. This one, you can see those polished bevel sides, 4 micro adjusts, fully brushed on the sides. Also, it does have that Seiko divers extension tucked away in there. It's always a bit difficult to get out, but I think, which side is it on? There we go. There's that divers extension. And then, yeah, milled internals now, so you get a full upgraded clasp. And one thing which I do like, I have to say, is that extended latch. That does really improve it, and that laser etched Seiko logo. Now, I like the sound the clasp makes. This is why I've never had an issue with Seiko clasps. I think that's quite a satisfying click. Yes, slightly rattly, you do feel that. I mean, this uses pin and collar system. I think the collar on this is quite small, but that is a fiddly task. But the bracelet finishing, the links, I think the shape of the links, that, you know, that vertical brushing across those links. You've got beveled edges on either side of the center links, which are polished. So great clean transitions between the polishing and the brushing. A lot of light play. I feel the end links don't really match the case, but that could be just me. And they fit okay. You know, there is a bit of play, you know, in that end link, which again at £1,200 is not a sort of nice thing to feel or nice thing to see. And with regards to alignment, you know, it is a real shame with the bezel, because the rotation on this particular model is superb. It's got soft muted clicks. You can hear all those double clicks. It's just alignment where it fails you. And I know there's an inconsistency in bezel rotation as well, but that's always been there. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes, you know, too light, too loose, etc. But this one, you know, it's got the right amount of resistance and everything's okay. Just that misalignment does ultimately pee you off slightly. So I went for the green and gold version. I think there's just a bit more going on. You've got a brushed gold seconds hand, which is quite different, you know, to the polished and brushed hands. And I really like how they've done that. So the minute and the hour hand, one side is brushed vertically and the other side is left polished, and that really does wonders for the watch and the light play. Just I love how the light bounces off those sides, you know, giving you, you know, even better legibility. And of course, this being a Seiko Diver, the lume is going to be phenomenal, which it is, and it lasts a very long time. And this dial under normal light looks very dark. It's not a bright green, but when you do get in the light, I do like that darker tone of green used on this. You know, quite a moss green, which is nice. And yeah, I gotta say the watch is good. And, you know, I'm not at all having a go at the watch and saying it's horrible, it's rubbish, because it actually isn't. It is really good, but it's just priced way too high. And if Seiko continue down this path, there's going to be a lot of people like me which don't even look at the newer models. I mean, you know, the Captain Willard reissues and so on and so forth, £800-900. I really don't see that. And I'm not the only one. I think I watched a video from Jody recently. He actually acquired the Steel Master. You know, he was very happy to get it, but with the movement and that misalignment, you know, really did seem disappointed with the watch. But as would I be if I spent, you know, anywhere near that amount. So I'm happy I actually still got one. Obviously I paid a fraction of the cost which they retail at. So for me as a Seiko collector, modder, etc., I am happy with this. I've got no qualms with this, and this will be in the collection because wearability wise, it's a really good dive watch with awesome proportions and equally good case finishing. Just, you know, as we know, the common issues that Seiko have: QC, misalignment, and poor use of movement, in my opinion. So that's it from me today. Hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next one.